And more and more news coming along with Mr. James Harden here in the NBA. As we all know, the main player they're looking at for free agency is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's the main player in target. The media is going to speculate the whole season. They're going to talk about all these rumors, where he could potentially go. And then on the trading block, they always have that one-star player. And now this is going to be James Harden. James Harden right now. Okay, so we already know for the past couple of weeks or so that basically and essentially he had the Brooklyn Nets as the number one option and the Philadelphia 76ers, yada. The GM for the Rockets, they want quote unquote the whole farm for James Harden. So the Nets, that's not going through. And plus, I doubt the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant, they trade away Kyrie Irving. Now that would be a cold move. Now I would love to see James Harden with a dynamic duo with Kevin Durant. That ISO ball would work together. They can win a championship, but not to divert too much. The Philadelphia 76ers, the GM of the Rockets already stated that they're not going to be able to send James Harden to Philadelphia because Daryl Morey's on the other side and they just don't like that feel. Kind of like with the Pelicans with Anthony Davis sending him over to the Lakers. Now, this was pre-David Griffin. They had another GM in the 2019 season. But right now, James Harden is in that desperation mode. He wants to leave and get out of the Rockets organization. And again, they traded Russell Westbrook away. They have a new coach. Daryl Morey's gone. James Harden does not have his identity, and he needs to win a championship. So he added two more teams to his list. And this was kind of stated before, but the Miami Heat, he actually stated that before a couple weeks, but now he's actually, reiterating it. Let alone he actually added the Milwaukee Bucks, which is very interesting because Giannis Antetokounmpo and him have had beef. They've been kind of throwing shade, throwing shots at each other from time to time. So it's kind of funny, but James Harden's getting down in that desperation mode. He's trying to win it. James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo duo would actually be very lethal. Because with Giannis, he needs a closer on his team. He needs someone who can score the ball by himself. And James Harden is a top 5 player in the NBA. Those two together would be pretty much two of the top 6 players in the NBA, guys that are in their prime, superstars, and pretty much star players in that tier. So I'm excited if that were to go through. Of course, Giannis would stay long-term in Milwaukee. Hopefully the same situation with James Harden, or maybe he just plays out another 2-3 seasons. But ideally, that would be a great duo together whatsoever. I'm kind of shocked that James Harden would elect to go to Milwaukee, the city, but he's trying to go to the Eastern Conference. He's trying to be able to go deep and try to win a championship. And then with the Miami Heat, they are looking for Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2021 in free agency. So, Jimmy Butler's liked a couple of a post from James Harden stating about the Miami news. So that's very interesting to say the least. There's been reports that Pat Riley stated that basically Tyler Herro and some of the young guys are untouchable. So it's just going to have to play on. Let's jump into here on Undisputed, and let's get a little more of their takes, and I'll give mine.
Morning, the Bucks and Heat are the two latest teams that James Harden would like to be dealt to. Those teams join the 76ers and Nets as the 3-time scoring champ desired trade destination. So, Shannon, what is your reaction to this report and where he wants to go?
It doesn't shock me whatsoever. Ever since LeBron James has joined the Western Conference, we see more players that are deciding to pretty much go over to the East. And the East is pretty weak as it is. There's not a lot of superstars, let alone star players out there. That's why it's very simple for you to be like a, not throwing a shade or a jab, but for like a Chris Middleton to make the All-Star game, a Bam Adebayo, a DeMontis Sabonis. And those are great players, but if it were the Western Conference, Devin Booker got in basically because Damian Lillard got injured. It's stacked over there in the Western Conference. So basically for right now, James Harden listed 4 teams for the East. It's easy to be a superstar, get amount of wins, let alone go deep into the playoffs. So James Harden right now, his main motive, his mother stated that he wants to win a championship and chase a ring. So the Eastern Conference is ideal for James Harden to go over to. Now, when it comes to any of these 4 teams right now, I don't expect any demand for both parties to get this done with before the NBA season starts. I actually expect this to happen next offseason. Maybe push comes to shove before the trade deadline, something goes through, but I don't really see it happening. If you're the Miami Heat mid-season, you're not going to trade away those young guys, let alone you're going to look at Giannis for free agency. For Philadelphia, they'll do it, but It really depends on the Rockets side of things. If you're looking at the Bucks, I don't know if the Rockets would do that for pretty much like Chris Middleton, some draft picks and such forth. And then for the last team is the Brooklyn Nets. That's not going through. So I don't see any tip and scale to where any of these deals will go through before the season or during it. I would expect ideally next offseason.
Well, I can understand because Miami was in the finals last year, and Milwaukee, the Bucks they have Giannis, they have Chris Middleton, they have Holiday. Skip, you're gonna have to get off probably two of those guys. So is it gonna be Giannis? But if I'm the Miami Heat, if I'm the Houston Rockets, James, you want to go to Miami? Okay, I want Jimmy Butler, I want Tyler Hero.
No, I'm gonna stop you right there, Shannon Sharp. Listen, if you're trading away Jimmy Butler or if you're trading away James Harden over to the Miami Heat, number one, you don't want Jimmy Butler if you're the Rockets. Number two, why would you even include that? If you're the Houston Rockets and you're trading away James Harden, you're going to rebuild. So essentially, you would want Tyler Herro, you would want Duncan Robinson, you would want Bam Adebayo and draft picks. And that would leave an opportunity for the Miami Heat to stay as a contender. They can pair Jimmy Butler off with James Harden, and then they can bring veteran players and build off those two. If you're the Houston Rockets, you would have a young team together with the core foundation of Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson. You can probably throw Kendrick Nunn. 3 out of those 4 players would be in that discussion of that trade. Plus, you would have to add around 3 first-round picks.
And I want Bam Adebayo. That where you want to go?
And Pat Riley's going to say, huh?
Oh, exactly. Okay, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, Milwaukee say, if I'm Houston, Milwaukee, y'all want James Harden? Okay, give me Giannis and Drew Holiday.
That's not happening. The Rockets are not going to ask for Giannis Antetokounmpo for James Harden. Everyone knows that's not going to be a flip.
Skip, I understand. James has put them in a very difficult situation.
Yes.
He's a superstar, and normally superstars get what they want, be it players to bring in players, or if you make them unhappy, they says, I want to go, and they make life miserable for you. But Skip, it is hard to recoup. It's hard to get equal value for a guy of James Harden's caliber. But Skip, I'm not giving him away. I've got him for 2 more years. And if you want James Harden, you're going to get as close to my asking price as you possibly can come. Or else James Harden is going to be miserable.
Well, that's a bad approach, Mr. Shannon Sharp, and you should know this ever since you are a quote-unquote LeBron and Lakers fan. Anthony Davis had the same situation back into 2019. Anthony Davis had a year and a half left of his contract for the New Orleans Pelicans. So due to your logic, you're stating the Pelicans should have just kept him for the year and a half and not even traded him away whatsoever. There was toxicity with Anthony Davis. He made it well known to the whole public and his whole team he wants out of there. And that made sense for the Pelicans to trade him off. Now, the Pelicans GM at the time stated they would never, ever trade him to the LA Lakers. They actually brought in a new GM the following season, the offseason. They brought David Griffin, who has ties with LeBron James. He made the correct move. He traded away Anthony Davis, and he pretty much brought in Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, picks, young guys. And you also got Zion Williamson, part of the first pick. So that worked out very well for the Pelicans. They were in mediocrity. They were pretty much around a non-playoff team to a first-round exit type team. That pretty much era ended with Anthony Davis. You do not keep trying to force it. You're not going to get anywhere. That's the same thing with the Houston Rockets with James Harden. It's been 8 years. You had your era. You had your momentum. It's done with. You got to trade him away. Even though James Harden is a top 5 player in the league, and you're not going to get quote-unquote the same value for him, it's more about an investment. Your era with him is done with. His value is high. Trade him off. You get young pieces that have potential, draft picks, cap flexibility, and you prepare for the future.
Playing in Houston, Texas. So I'm not giving him away. So if you think you're going to get James Harden because, he put Miami on the list, or, he put the Bucks on the list, okay, fine. That just, you definitely got some pieces I want. Okay, give me Hero and give me Bam and give me some of those. You know what, Skip? I'll let you have. You know what? Y'all can keep Jimmy Butler. But I want Bam, I want Tyler Hero, and I want Duncan Robinson.
And personally for me, not to dive in too quick, but I think that's a win for both. But the only X factor that why I don't see this going through is because you do have the Miami Heat are looking at Giannis Antetokounmpo in the 2021 free agency class. So the Miami Heat are going to have the cap flexibility, cap space to where they can bring in that max contract. If they bring in James Harden, they're going to let go of their young pieces and pretty much divert their bench to where it's just James and Jimmy. There's no need for the Heat to do that. They understand this because they can bring in Giannis and they can keep Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro, Kendrick Nunn, etc., etc. That's the only reason why I don't see the Miami Heat moving forward alongside this.
You know, and for good measure, 2 first-round draft picks, and you can have it.
Okay. And Pat Riley's going to say, kick rock.
Well, yeah. Well, then you can. Well, hey, well, get off my. Why you on my phone then? Why you running up my phone bill using my minutes if you're not gonna give me what I asked for? Because I got what you want. You ain't got nothing. I didn't call you and say, hey, I got a deal for you. You calling me.
James put you on the list, Miami.
Well, that's a untake me off the list.
Okay. Here's the whole problem with this. To your point about LeBron, KD, James is not free. He's not a free agent. If he were a free agent, we could be having a whole different discussion right now. I feel for James. I get it. He woke up one day and said, where am I? Who am I? What am I? I'm going into my 12th year, and I got no shot here.
Zero shot.
Right? And now there's another story, which I don't know how credible all these things are, but even with the coaching situation, I thought he was all in on Steven Silas, but apparently that was just a compromise because the owner, Fertitta, wanted Jeff Van Gundy, and James did not want Jeff. That James, according to the latest report,
wanted T.
Lue. And I don't blame him.
But Skip, I always thought I was very suspicious. Is that it?
Well, yeah, because if he has Tyronn Lue will pretty much let you do what you want. Ty Lue is not an X's and O's type coach. He'll let LeBron James dictate the basketball, do what he wants out there. Same thing he would do with James Harden. Harden doesn't really want to be coached. Harden just wants the ball in his hands, play street ball, rack up 40 points a night, then go to sleep. And then, actually, before going to sleep, he'll head up to a club. That's it.
You co-sign for a coach coming, and then both players, like both James and Russ, co-sign on Silas coming. And then the next day they ask for trades. How did that work?
I don't know. I was shocked by it too. But if the story is to be believed, and I do believe that this was just a compromise and it didn't make either one of them happy, and then Russ says, I want to be me. You know, I want to go where I can be me, and he got to go where he will definitely be Russ again, right?
And he goes with Scotty Brooks, who was their skipper, those triple-double season MVP, so he knows it.
And as I tweeted that night, poor Bradley Beal. I feel sorry for him now because he's...
Now, for a trade proposal, which doesn't make sense for the Rockets, but for the Clippers, if you're the LA Clippers, even though you just signed a max extension with Paul George, I will look to do any way possible to where you trade Paul George and anything you can do to get James Harden. If you're Kawhi Leonard, if you're the Clippers, you want to pair James Harden with Kawhi Leonard. Now, pretty much the Clippers screwed themselves over. They don't have the draft picks because they pretty much traded away 6 first-round picks for Paul George. So you're depleted there. And with your other assets, those are pretty much just veteran role player type guys. No really young potential. So really nothing you can send over to the Rockets that you can get James Harden. But I think that would have been an ideal situation for the Clippers. Just kind of a random thought.
Going to have to learn to cope.
Okay, Skip Bayless, you the general. So what should Pat Riley give up to get James Harden?
I'm going to guess on this that Pat
Riley shouldn't, and he understands this. James Harden's 30. He's about to be 31 next season. And basically with James Harden, he needs the ball in his hands. He doesn't play in a team system. He's not really a culture setter in a positive matter. And you're not going to trade away all your draft picks and pass away an opportunity away from Giannis Antetokounmpo to pretty much get Harden. Pat Riley and the Miami Heat are in a great direction. They signed one-year deals this offseason. And basically within that, they're going to be able to get Giannis Antetokounmpo in those sweepstakes in 2021 free agency. So basically, you can bring in Giannis, and you're still going to have Jimmy Butler, Nunn, Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, Duncan Robinson, and keep that same core, but pretty much just add Giannis. They're not going to deplete that whole young core and opportunity at Giannis just for James Harden alone. No.
Riley wants no part of James Harden any way, shape, or form. that you couldn't even give James to them right now because he is recreating that Heat culture that was based around Dwayne, who was a unselfish sacrifice for the team kind of player. A share the ball kind of a player, right? Who didn't care that much about his numbers. He cared about winning titles.
Correct.
And he had LeBron, the ultimate sharer of the basketball, the best passer in basketball.
And Giannis Antetokounmpo is an ideal fit and culture setter that would fit perfectly well with the Miami Heat, rather than James Harden.
And it worked with those two because they loved each other like brothers, and it worked. Okay? And they won a couple of championships together. Okay? Gotcha. If you put James in the middle of a mix that got to the finals last year, and I'm sure Pat Riley will go to his grave saying if we'd stayed healthy, we would have given him a hell of a battle.
He believes that.
Yep, that's correct. I don't know if he believed they would have won, but it would have gone 7.
The Miami Heat still would have lost in a max of 6 games against the LA Lakers if there was 0 injuries. They still would have lost.
7 games, and he take his chance with the 7th game series.
Got Tyler Hero making a hero ball shot at the end of the game. But I think Miami wouldn't want James Harden. I think Milwaukee would love to have James Harden if they could pair him with Giannis. But how are you going to pull that off? Because Giannis needs James.
Bingo. Thank you, Mr. Skip Bayless. Giannis and the Bucks. Giannis would easily want to bring in James Harden on that team, but they don't have the assets.
James Harden. That would be a match made in playoff heaven.
But think about how far we've come. Giannis had an opportunity. He's picking sides. He had the most votes in the East. LeBron had the most votes in the West. And he did everything he could not to pick James Harden. And then took a shot at James Harden about his defense. And James Harden took a shot back, says,
Well, Shannon Sharp, they're both in a situation now to where the Bucks folded once again in the playoffs, and James Harden is pretty much on that toxic level, leaving the Rockets. Times change within around 10, 11 months, and now they're in desperation mode. The Bucks and Giannis are desperate, same thing with the Houston Rockets, and mostly with James Harden. They'll put their ego aside, and they will pair together. And basically, when you see all this quote-unquote drama, players going back and forth, they're most likely all cool with each other. It's just pretty much just antics and tactics, just for entertainment purposes. Nothing too much to dive deep into.
You know what? It would be great to be 7 foot tall and dunk everything. And now
they need each other.
You see that?
Do. But what? I mean, you can't trade Chris Middleton back to Houston. He's from the Texas. He went to Texas A&M, obviously.
I'm gonna get Chris Middleton and Holiday.
He's ranked 35th on the.
I'm gonna get Chris Middleton and Holiday.
Okay, and that's not enough. To fill.
Still not enough. If you're the Bucks, you still make that trade. But for the Rockets, you're going to need around 3 to 4 first-round picks. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Dante DiVincenzo. They really don't have that many other assets. So may have to do a 3-team trade. I doubt a third team would want to have James Harden go to Milwaukee. It's a weird situation, man.
A void left by James Harden.
You know what? No, because Skip, they really ain't got. They got what? They only got 1 first-round draft pick. They got that from when they traded John Wall. So they really ain't got nothing off because they gave up all their draft picks to OKC to get Russ. So nah. I'm going to need Jimmy Butler. No, Milwaukee. So what does Milwaukee have? So you can get.
Remember, they were going to trade DiVincenzo, but he came back.
Okay, so. They got Coddington. They got Middleton. They got Holiday.
It's just not enough. So we go back to Brooklyn, Philadelphia. Brooklyn is not going to trade either KD or Kyrie for James Harden.
And again, I've been stating this. I really expect what actually is going to happen when Harden gets traded. It's going to go to the Philadelphia 76ers. At the end of the day, there's going to be a huge demand for James Harden to leave on his side. There's going to be toxicity within the franchise. You can't hold James Harden with that mentality and attitude for too long. That's what happened with the Pelicans. They had Anthony Davis for around 5 seasons with that attitude. They finally had to let him go. Same thing with Harden. So basically what I'm saying is, push comes to shove, the only trade package that makes sense for the Rockets in their direction and with assets is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. I actually expect Philadelphia for this season, if they lose in the first or second round, as pretty much expected to be, they're going to pull the plug on Ben Simmons and or Joel Embiid. Now, ideally, they want to move Joel Embiid first, but The thing is, you're not going to get a max type player like a James Harden. So the Houston Rockets, they're going to require and they would ask for Ben Simmons. I actually would expect during then we would see a Ben Simmons and James Harden flip-flop. Basically, the Rockets can retool and rebuild with a young Ben Simmons on their team. And then basically over with the Philadelphia 76ers, you can bring in James Harden, who can still be a number one option, have Joel Embiid as your second guy, and they can make the conference finals, let alone almost probably make the finals. They'll be that competitive. It will be a win-win for both scenarios. Now, for me, I would make this trade ASAP. But there's a lot of pettiness. There's a lot of egos with management. So we're going to see this pretty much play off for the next couple of months. Most likely, I'm expecting during next offseason.
Again, over Kyrie's dead body, is he going to get traded when he was the one who said, hey, KD, let's go to Brooklyn.
Yeah, it was his idea to go to Brooklyn.
Right.
And to think that Brooklyn going to trade him to get James Harden.
It's just not going to happen. The only realistic, plausible scenario is that Daryl Morey, who took out a full-page ad in Houston to say, thank you, James Harden, you changed my life. You revolutionized basketball. He is the new GM of the Sixers.
Right.
He has 2 nuclear weapons, and they're ranked, Simmons is ranked 16th and Embiid 14th in this latest poll.
Right.
So they're top 20-ish players,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. The only way is if they said, okay, we will give up Ben Simmons for James Harden. I told you yesterday,
Bingo.
I would not do that if I were the Sixers. But I don't even know if he...
Real quick, and I've been interrupting too much. I'll let him flow, but I've stated this before. If I'm the 76ers, I do not make a trade. I do not trade away Ben Simmons for James Harden. A James Harden experiment would only last around 2 to 3 legitimate years of being a contender. So that's pretty much pushing it for a non-guaranteed championship. If I'm the Sixers, I want to keep Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons together for at least 3 more seasons. After that, if they don't make a finals appearance or there's been failures, then of course you would try to keep Ben Simmons and rebuild off of him. Now, this could probably be 2 to 3 seasons or 3 to 4. Who knows? But you want to keep Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They've only played together for 3 seasons, and 2 out of those seasons they lost in the second round. Last season, Ben Simmons didn't play in the playoffs. So basically right now, the 76ers, they are on a great trend going up. Now, a lot of people in the media and franchises, they are very impatient, and they're probably going to ruin this whole thing together, which I kind of expect that to be. But you need to keep Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid for at least 2 to 3 more seasons alongside with that. Now, if you're the Rockets, you would want Ben Simmons in a heartbeat for James Harden. Because, again, Harden is still a top 5 player in the league, a superstar, but your era with James Harden is over. You're not going to be able to get a 5-star player for a 5-star player or like a 4.8 for a 4.8. You're not going to get Harden for like Giannis. You're not going to get Harden for Luka, etc., etc. So basically, this is an investment if you're the Rockets. You trade away Harden, who I'm not saying is on the downtrend, but he just turned 30. You're going to bring in Ben Simmons, and you can use that Ben Simmons experience for your franchise for like around 6 to 7 seasons. So if you're the Rockets, you need to pull the plug and do that ASAP.
Houston would take Ben Simmons back.
Exactly.
Okay, it's a guy who can't or won't shoot.
Right.
For James Harden?
Right.
Now, how's your box office going to look now?
Yeah, James
What
Harden.
marquee value does Ben Simmons bring?
And that's the thing, Skip. Look, you can want to buy something all you want.
Yep.
But if the seller is unwilling to sell it, what good is that? Skip, if I got a house and like, man, look here, that's a beautiful house. I want to buy it. It's not for sale.
Okay.
Well, Houston Rockets like, okay, this is what we offer you. No,
Okay,
I don't want that.
If I were the Rockets, I would take Embiid straight up for James Harden.
Oh, no, I got to get some draft picks.
If I'm the Rockets, I'm not taking Joel Embiid for James Harden straight up. That's asinine. I would take Ben Simmons for James Harden straight up. I think they're just kind of talking in circles now. I'm going to end it off here. 4 teams overall. The only one that makes sense with assets, pretty much a win for both franchises and timing, would be the Philadelphia 76ers and the Houston Rockets flip-flop. I don't expect the Miami Heat. They're looking for Giannis. They want to keep their young cats. For the Brooklyn Nets, they don't have the assets. They're not going to trade away Kyrie or Kevin Durant. And then with the last team, you do have the Milwaukee Bucks. They don't have enough assets. So basically, I expect James Harden to be stuck with the Houston Rockets and pout for pretty much the whole season. The next following offseason, I expect the trade to go down to Philadelphia, or maybe there's another team in the sweepstakes. Who knows about that? But I'm going to end it off here. James Harden, let's see how pretty much he's going to cover this season and how the Houston Rockets will play out.